What is up, sexy people of the internet? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from UK prog band Frost. The band's new album, Life in the Wires, will be released on October 18th via InsideOut Music.
You would never have guessed from listening to this. Like this is the fucking Pepsi Coke blind test of record labels. Who are these guys on? Inside Out.
Frost. So Frost were formed by songwriter, producer, and musician Jem Godfrey, better known to the wider world for his work creating chart-topping pop hits for bands including Atomic Kitten, Blue, Ronan Keating, and more.
Yeah. You say it best when you say. I don't know why I'm making him sound like Scott Stapp. Although I would pay cold hard cash for a Creed cover band which was fronted by Ronan Keating, and that'd be fucking amazing.
However, in 2004, Godfrey made a conscious decision to return to his own musical past, writing and playing progressive music. Now on album number 5, and with the classic Frost lineup of guitarist John Mitchell, bassist Nathan King, and returning drummer Craig Blundell, the band attempts something new. Every prog band worth their salt really should do a double album, shouldn't they? Should they or shouldn't they?
Every reviewer should insist to every band that they release a non-double album. Like a single album is, especially in a week where they had 3 other albums to listen to. They are right. I think if you're in a prog band, you have to have at least one out there concept album and at least one double album. Or do you even prog, bro?
Well, this is the question. Jem said Falling Satellites from 2016 was very nearly a double album, and we've always kind of had this idea of wanting to do one. So I sat down last summer and thought, well, I'm just going to have to get my head down and go for it. Life in the Wires is Frost at its most ambitious, offering nearly 90 minutes of music over 14 exquisite tracks. The album is the brainchild of Godfrey, who was inspired to create the conceptual world for the album based on the group's previous release, Day and Age. It's actually a sort of continuation from Day and Age. The first track on the new album starts with the end of the last track from that album, Repeat to Fade, where the static comes up and a voice says, "Can you hear me?" The story revolves around the main character, Nio, an aimless kid heading for a meaningless future in an AI-run world.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
No, I'm out. The AI, fuck that.
Helping create this parallel world are the classic Frost lineup, with Godfrey taking lead vocals this time around. It was kind of a nod to Million Town, really. I thought, well, I am the original singer after all. Dick Burke sang a lot of Experiments and Mass Appeal. John and I shared the singing on Falling Satellites, and John did most of Day and Age, so I thought I'm probably due another go at it. With this one, because there's so much material, there are bits of the album that reference all 4 of the previous albums, little nods to our past endeavours. It's slightly nostalgic, I know, but because the whole album has that slightly nostalgic vibe to it, remembering the past and stuff, I thought, why not? Also, I haven't soloed for 5 years and I fancied a bit of a rinse.
If you can, do it, man.
Yeah. So, just a wee bit of a backstory here before we get into the review.
Peek behind the curtain. I love giving our listeners, because we come on here and we're so cocky, so professional. Cocksure is the word I would use. And if you've seen me in the flesh, cocksure is the word you'd use. We the amount of albums that we've reviewed that almost never happened, in terms of a review, we'd never have heard of, really, probably for another album cycle, is unreal. But every now and again, we finish our duty as a recording duo, and we'll sit back and then we discuss what we're going to do the following week. We kind of set the agenda, we set the tone, Dave.
Yeah.
And there's usually at least one or two releases where we're like, yeah, absolutely 100% this is happening. And then Dave takes a flutter. You'll be like, that, we'll pick it out. I like that single, or whatever.
Roll the dice.
Every now and again, though, there's something about the press release, or there's something about a song, or it's on a label, or there's a name connected to the project, either behind the desk or as a guest or something, that will trigger something that you bring it as a possible suggestion. This is one such case which resulted in us joking about something that turned out to be true, and then we couldn't have been more fucking in before but I hadn't even heard the song. Like I was like pushing the baby across the crab table, like all in. There's my house keys while I'm at, and there's my wife. You know what I mean? I was just so in.
I had heard one single. I'd heard Moral and Consequence. Sorry.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I'm quite digging what I'm hearing there.
Also 8 minutes long.
Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, 8 minutes, but cool. I liked it. I was like, this. I'm going to throw this as a possibility into the list. I not at that point. I didn't know the band went back like 20 years. Also didn't know this was a 90-minute double album.
No, there was so many things just done on a whim here.
Yeah. Hashtag what have I done? But as the details started to unfold, I was like, wait a minute here.
It's a joke. There was like such a Dave Duncan joke in the background.
Be. Surely not. I actually recognised the drummer's name. Craig Blundell. I was like, as a drummer myself, I was like, I totally know that guy's name. Like, where have I heard them, or have I heard a band that he's been in? Turns out I've seen this guy play live, and I didn't even know that last week either, or a couple of weeks ago when we started talking about this. He did a drum clinic in Glasgow like many years ago. Actually saw him play there. Brilliant drummer, but then came the icing on the cake.
This is the sweetener right here. This is how you get Dave Duncan in. You just reference, this is like Beetlejuice. You mentioned this, we're going to be there.
Turns out the bassist is a guy called Nathan King. Okay. And I jokingly said, as a way to get Duncan on board with this album, his surname is King, you know what I mean? And one of the best bass players alive is Mark King. So surely...
For those uneducated and just idiots out there, Mark King is frontman and bass player of UK funk pop band Level 42, of which basically I don't know if we would have as strong a friendship as we do. Like, when we first met in college, I don't want to, this is a double album, we're going to be here for a while, so get us a cup of tea. But like when we've like first met each other and we didn't really speak to each other, we were at college and we were learning music production and all that fun stuff that we obviously have taken to nothing in what we do in our real life except making podcasts, which I get the feeling there are videos on YouTube now that teach you how to do that, so we didn't even it's a lot of tuition down the drain, right? But I remember this. I remember a conversation where you asked me about what I liked and all the rest out with metal, and I specifically remember saying to you, in my house I grew up listening to it's like a lot of old shit, but my mum was obsessed with the new romantic era of pop music in the UK, and as a result I had listened to more 80s pop music than I think any child who was born in the 80s should have been subjected to. And I remember chatting backwards and forwards, and I mentioned a lot of bands that Dave's eyes are rolling. I was like your Janan Janans and your like fucking Human Leagues, and Dave's having none of it. And your Gary Newman's like his eyes are still rolling. And I was like, well, what you got? And then I distinctly remember you saying Level 42, and I was like, fucking way. And that literally we bonded over that band. We've seen them 2 or 3 times live now as well, in their later age. But this is a joke, throwaway joke. Oh, I could be brother of. I'll just go to the old Google machine and I'll check out what comes up. This is actually, in fact, Mark King's brother. Which, like, ballsy move, being the brother of Mark King and being a musician and playing bass. Like, I mean,
I mean, we've seen him live as well because he plays guitar with Level 42.
Yes,
so
he does.
I've actually seen this guy on stage. And it was at that point I was like, okay, the stars have completely aligned here, Duncan. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't see I'm even the biggest like traditional prog guy. Like, there's a few bands from that style that I can. Yeah,
Once in a blue moon, we'll sit down and listen to a prog band and review them for this.
Yeah, but I was like, we've got to do this. We have to. Like, there's no questions here. Like, Mark King's brother's involved, and Craig Blundell, who I've heard before as well. Like, let's
cunt I seen years ago.
Yeah, that guy, that drummer. So I was like, let's do it. Let's get into this. And then obviously I found it was a double album. I was like, oh no, what have I done? But that being said, firstly, as I said, this is double album is a concept album, as well. And I actually really like the concept of this album. I think it's really well thought out, really well executed. You can tell these guys have a huge amount of experience, not only playing but arranging music as well, because this is constructed in a way that feels very seasoned. Jem has obviously been, as I said, writing and performing music for many years with big name bands and artists, and that comes across, because even though this is like primarily a different genre from maybe stuff that he's worked on in the production side, it shares DNA, in that, like, the intuition of how to build a track that peaks in all the right places, like a pop song would, is still very much a part of this. And this flows and transitions from track to track very much like a concept album. It doesn't feel like 14 individual tracks.
No.
They all feed into each other. They have that like connective kind of tissue.
Musical movements.
For sure. Even, as I mentioned, the closing track on the previous album, Day and Age, even though the kind of sound and production is different, that the digital or static digital noise type thing that closes the album with the Can You Hear Me, that like seamlessly leads into this one, into Skywaving, which is the first track on this album, with the same static and the same vocal or same line, same phrase that kicks in on the start of the album. And the rest of the album is just as well kind of thought out, with bits of piano linking up tracks or synths or electronics. It's all brilliantly kind of linked together. The way the vocals are delivered are also key on this album. Some have kind of like certain effects to give it that almost kind of like futuristic feel, and that again feeds into the kind of the concept and gives you more of a kind of story like narrative to this album. So it might be a long album at 90 minutes, but I think that story arc actually helps keep you interested in the album. It did for me anyway. And every track kind of gives you something different. I'm not going to do a track by track, by the way, just before I go into this, because it's like,
as a pre-warning, it took us 10 minutes to get to the album, so let's not do that.
It'll end up longer than the album. But I think the way that they've placed these tracks to continually give you a different feel works really well. It kind of reminded me in a way of the Ockrust album we reviewed like a couple of years back.
Yeah.
Just
same
the way
label as well, so
yeah, the way that it shifts in tone like throughout the album, it kind of reminded me of that. But I like the fact that this album does give you a bit of everything, whether it is traditional prog, pushing the length a little bit, taking the time to expand on motifs throughout the album with, there's a heavy use of keys, and synths, or really like capturing that like retro feel of the 70s and 80s, where they just like knock out a catchy as fuck banger, or sometimes they actually bring it more in line with a modern prog style, where the guitars have a bit more kind of bite and groove to the feel of the track is a bit more groove, a bit more impact. It kind of takes you through it all, but it never sounds like a collection of random songs. They make sure they all fit stylistically and tonally, so it has that kind of cohesion throughout the album. I'll do highlights rather than going through like the whole album, but highlights for me, I loved Life in the Wires Part 1, which hears them get like very progressive on this track, almost like touching on like liquid tension type experimentation. Lots of little like syncopated riffs and intricate fills, but still with moments that will hook you in vocally and melodically. I really liked the kind of sci-fi tinge of the Solid Snare Orchestra, which had vocals and melodies, but it's weird, like the arrangement isn't in a like verse chorus type setup.
No.
It felt much more like part of the concept, or like a chapter of the story. I thought that was really cool. They follow that up with Evaporator, which is an absolute tune. Like, huge dose of 80s, and the synths and the kind of piano motif. The vocals are absolute fire, like killer hook. When I was listening, I was like, I could imagine this on like an 80s movie soundtrack.
Oh god,
just such a good track, like really, really addictive. The album also has like a kind of halfway point as well. So like tracks 1 to 8 are CD1, or the first vinyl, or first part of the vinyl. And then tracks
again there, didn't you, Dave? Track 4 vinyl, if ever I heard.
Yeah, it must be. Tracks 9 to 14 make up the second half. And I really like the split of it. Absent Friends, which is track 8, and like the end of part 1 ends on a very like kind of somber note, soaked in like strings and piano, more kind of like ballad-esque, I suppose, on the album. And there's a sample at the end that connects part 2, and then School, track 9, kicks in with a much more like kind of metal kind of guitar tone.
Like if I ever entered the Royal Rumble, School introducing All Seeing Eye would be my fucking walkout music. That riff is that's when the commentators go, business is about to pick up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's a total fucking stomp riff. It's amazing.
But it's like heavily kind of orchestrated, and that kind of instrumentation. It's more riff kind of heavy. Reminded me in places of the orchestration that's used in the last Ishan album a little bit. It's quite theatrical.
I love that you're linking it back to me. I had it like I know he's in a bad place right now and we shouldn't mention him. We'll probably get struck down for mentioning it, but P Diddy's Come With Me from the Godzilla soundtrack with Jimmy Page.
Ishan, P Diddy. It's like,
well, like I had Jimmy Page playing guitar. It was like that's what it reminded me of.
Right.
Ishan's probably more apt in a modern sort of progressive context.
Yeah, it was quite theatrical and quite dark in places. Moral Consequence is also a great track. Had a little bit of like a Freak Kitchen type feel in some of the guitar work. A little bit more quirky, great groove. The sync between the guitars and the keys is fucking awesome. And the runs and the patterns they use on that track are really impressive. So like a lot of great moments on the album, and it just keeps you going right through. Like there's always something you're like, yes, right, on to the next one. And the playing that's behind those tracks, like you cannot fault it. These guys sound like session musicians, really. Like most of them are, but like it comes across. I lost how many times I re-listened to certain sections just to try and catch like what they were doing, or like a time signature, or like a pattern that Craig on drums is added in. Like it's just, there's so many little, like as a musician, there's so much to geek out over here. Like just so good. I actually think, and this, you're gonna be like, Dave, what the fuck's wrong with you? It must be the cold that's fucked your head. But the piano work on this is
the piano work is incredible,
unreal. Like I was blown away with that
because it's used right. Like this is what I keep mentioning to, like the stuff that you don't like, which isn't traditional metal instruments that are used in bands, are by bands that don't use them right. See, when they're used right, you should sit there and go, that impact adds emphasis, lifts the track up, like a counter melody, a motif, or whatever it is. That's what they're supposed to be used for. And guess what? These guys are really fucking good at it.
Yeah, that the House of Winter has some of the coolest piano runs I've heard in a long time. Sometimes it's a little jazzy, other times it gets like crazy progressive, but the control and the precision is unbelievably good. Obviously, we need to mention Nathan King here, though. The younger brother of one of the most recognised bass players ever. He puts in a shift on this. Like, some of those bass fills on this
are ridiculous.
Absolutely killer. Like, really good.
He doesn't sound like his brother, which is funny. Like, he doesn't go down that traditional. He's clearly a very accomplished musician.
Yeah, I think.
And he takes the bass for a walk. But it's so interesting because there are moments on this where that 80s pop sensibility that comes out is so akin to Level 42. Yeah. It's just Level 42 had moments of prog, but this is like a proggier Level 42 without the slap bass. is really fucking good. Like Propaganda, which has the big heavy riff. The bass work on that is
amazing.
It's fucking incredible.
Yeah, I love that. Like that track, there's lots of nice kind of spacious moments in the guitars, so it really lets the bass come through and just get a bit more intricate. Like some of the little runs he does are just nuts.
Insane.
Like, yeah. I think like the fact that he's a guitarist as well probably helps. Like the finger work is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
But like Jem as a vocalist as well, his melodies are so like.
What was he doing? Like, I'll just take back shift for a couple of albums. Whatever. This cunt can do it. Like, I don't understand. Like, he is so good.
Yeah, I know.
He is such a prog vocalist.
Yeah.
I mean that in the best sensibility. Like, he is just. Even like the melodies are not conventional, but they're catchy as fuck.
Yeah.
Where he won't follow exactly what the lead instrument's doing. In fact, if anything, he'll go lower than anticipated. He's a very playful. I'll give the other thing lyrically. This is fucking awesome as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's all nice and clear. You can make it out. Like, I was going, that's such a cool line. I love that idea. That paints a picture. Just like all the stuff that we use as taglines when we're throwing them out in reviews are all over this album. You know what I mean? Just
yeah, tremendous voice. I was surprised to hear that he wasn't the kind of main vocalist in the band. Like,
what the fuck's going on?
I really enjoyed his delivery on this. He doesn't overfill the songs with vocals either. So like when he does come in with a big chorus, it really stands out on certain tracks. I thought he'd done a great job on this. Yeah, like once I found out this was like a 90-minute double album, I was like, oof, I don't know how this is going to go.
How many times will I listen to this? Maybe like, two at a push.
A lot more than I expected.
Oh, fuck yes.
As like prog albums go, as double albums go, this is really fucking good. It's long. But like, I think you've got to be in that kind of headspace, to give it the attention that it deserves. But if you just sit and, just appreciate this for what it is, that concept and the length, it's very, very well done. Production is also like top tier on this. There's not a single element of this that feels like it doesn't match the quality or musicianship of this album.
Balance in the mix is like, for everything that's going on here is
for sure. It has a clarity and a depth to it that really captures like the kind of grandiosity of the music and fits the concept of the album really well as well. I was very impressed with this. Kind of surprised that they haven't been on my radar before now, considering them being on the go for 20 years. But thoroughly enjoyed it. What about yourself? What was your final thoughts on this one?
Oh yeah, I spun this to death, man. Yeah. Honestly, this is. I'll tell you how I knew I was going to end up spinning it to death. Right, like you mentioned, it opens with Skywaving, which is like it's an introduction track. It sets the tone. I didn't listen to the previous album, so I didn't get that through line connection.
Right.
Life in the Wires Part 1, like almost instantly busts down the door with some like primo fucking synth action, and as soon as it's proggy synth, and proggy synth is like marry me, like, you know what I mean? Like it came in, I was like, this is an album of this. And granted, it's 90 minutes. We're gonna need a bigger boat, Dave. Yeah, like I knew by the end of track 2 that I was going to be spinning this quite a bit. I think I listened to this close to like just short of 7 times through. Well, nice. It's a lot.
Yeah.
You've touched on so much of this. It's very difficult for me to overemphasize how really well structured, really well paced, really well delivered. The composition on this is just excellent. Yeah. Like every track, you're never wanting the riff to play another time, and you're never thinking the riff has went on too long. Same with the elements. They switch up. Interludes are never the same on any track.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is just... And like that makes sense to me. That's a guy who has recorded pop music for a long period of time, understands compositional arrangement and a way to keep audiences focused short form. He's just somehow managed to extend that out longer, which shouldn't work. Like there's a bit of everything in here and all of it works.
Yeah.
It never, like that Propaganda that I mentioned before is like easily the heaviest song on here because the riff is detuned to fuck.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound lost in the, like, doesn't sound like an oddity in it or lost in the mix either. It fits at a perfect point. The second half of the albums, track 9 through 14, start off heavier compared to the start of the previous one. But then it really finds like a greater use of space, which is interesting. The back half of the album plays a lot more with that, where the first one is really calibrated to kind of bring out like just banger after banger. The Solid State Orchestra, I know you were mentioning about unconventional parts. I think it's in the name. That's if you go and see a live orchestra, like composers never write music in like verse, chorus. It's all in movements and sections, and as a result, Solid State Orchestra feels like it goes that way. The fact he can keep doing his vocals in different parts to make each part compelling is kind of mind-blowing to me. It just goes to show how great he is. You mentioned Evaporator is a Rocky training montage song if I've ever fucking heard one. Someone should be running up a hill carrying a wounded dog to like a vet at the top of the Himalayas. I don't know, it's so fucking awesome. It's just absolutely amazing. School introducing All Seeing Eye. I mean, it was the first one where I was like, oh, this got fucking chops. I mean, the guitar playing is exquisite. The drum playing is playful and really smart. Like, I felt similar to yourself. I would be listening to a bit and I'm like that. Did he just like half time then double time and then like moments where he's just doing a fill, but then it runs on a little bit longer than I expected it to, or he starts being very playful on the hi-hat in a way where I'm like that, or that'll be the repeated pattern, but only plays once. And a 9-minute song, you're like, you'll never remember that live. You'll remember it live. And then vocally, like the vocals in this are absolutely sublime. Production is incredible. Runtime is not a put off. I mentioned to you off air my only complaint, and it might make more sense in terms of context to the previous release, is there is a radio host, so to speak. Either that or he might be now you've mentioned AI, he might be the AI voice, which I don't know if it still makes sense to me. It's introduced rather late in the album, like this was track 4 or 5, and it actually finishes out the album before the end of the album as well. And it's kind of like a radio host, kind of almost like saying relatively nihilistic and kind of patronizing remarks, which is obviously what you're supposed to do, to link up songs. That element doesn't work for me as well. Like the static sounds do, like the idea, but it's static and like that you're coming into focus. It doesn't sound like you're tuning into a radio station. So from my perspective, I'm a little bit lost on that one. I wouldn't mark it down because it's a concept album, because I might not fully understand the concept. It's probably on me to do a little bit more research. That bit maybe didn't work for me fully, but the music on which I will judge this album overall is impeccable. Like, this is one of those ones where when we listened to that Leprous album earlier on this year, and I was just like that, I understand it. Right? Guy's a great singer. Music is boring as fuck. Right? I don't understand, and they were more interesting when they were a bit more experimental and all the rest. This is the band I would counter with. The vocals might not be as impressive as Leprous, but they're fucking great. And guess what? You can have great vocals and great, challenging, interesting music together on an album, make it 90 minutes, and have me locked in all the way through. Yeah, this album is the tits. And it's... we almost never listened.
Yeah, I know.
But also at the same time, it's just a shiny reminder of why it's really cool to listen to music that isn't the music that every magazine tells you to listen to. So, like, how many other bands are out there like Frost? Like who could know? And it's in a genre we don't listen to, and that's how I know it works. When it can drag me as someone who's not a non-traditional prog fan and make me completely embedded with an album. That's when I know someone's done something right, where they can take their sound, like Nine Inch Nails, and bring it to the masses and get people interested and then open the door. I am super curious to go back and check the back catalogue and the adjacent work of the musicians. That's how interested I am now. What other bands have they played in? What other stuff have they done? And that's how you end up spiderwebbing out. So, yes, fucking awesome.
Nice. So, final thing. What would we score Life in the Wires by Frost. This is like, as prog albums go, this is really, really good. I was surprised how listenable this was at that length. I didn't expect to come back to as much, knowing it was like a 90-minute double album, but I listened to it way more than I expected. I also thought it was really impressive how these guys are all clearly seasoned and session musicians, but they don't overplay it either. Like, it would have been very easy for them to just all be doing like crazy mad runs and chops all the time, and it to become a bit of a mess and a muddle. But it doesn't. It's very well balanced between that kind of technicality and proggy coolness, but it's got hooks and it's got melody and it's got moments where it doesn't go kind of wild either. So I thought that was really well done. I would probably go pretty high on this one. I'm going to go at 4.5 out of 5 on this one. I was really, really enjoyed it. Like, probably one of the best prog albums I've heard this year. What about yourself? What are you thinking?
We are synchronizing a lot tonight. Yeah, 4.5.
Oh,
this is fucking
nice.
awesome. Absolutely awesome. I will be playing this right to the end of the year.
Nice.
Like, easy. Like, it's just such an easy album to listen to.
Yeah.
And musically really interesting. Like that way where you're relaxing but your brain's still engaged.
Yeah.
All the way right through it.
Yep.
I'm also going to say, I'm going to put it in the hands of the gods. Want to see it live. Could you imagine, man?
Yeah.
Like good venue. I'm talking about the Armadillo. Like a nice proper amphitheater just sitting there. Kind of level 42-esque. Where we get a chance to have a wee seat down there and just be like that. That's fucking...
A wee seat. Yeah.
Bitchin'.
I like the sound of that, yeah.
Yeah, a wee seat. Yeah, this is absolutely brilliant and I had a lot of fun this last week, man. Really.
Nice. So that is Frost, Life in the Wires, out on October 18th on InsideOut Music. I'll put the links below to the band, to the pre-order, Bandcamp, all that sort of stuff, so you can check it out. Have a listen. There's a few singles out there already. Check them out. Let us know what you think. That is our review. Thank you for checking out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.